This sitting is now resumed. Prior to suspension, this Honourable Chamber was debating the second reading of the Electric Light and Power Amendment Bill 2019. To that we shall now revert. Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this legislation before the Honourable Chamber for many reasons. Simply because, sir, as Barbados develops, certainly we want to make sure that the level of public participation, on the one hand, as we go through the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan, sir, that the democratization, sir, of economic opportunities in this country, sir, will determine not just the success of that program, but for ordinary Barbadians to be able to participate such that we can mitigate, sir, against the loss of income earnings through interest in the traditional financial sector. That as we build out, sir, the program with respect to renewable energies, that we are doing so in a manner, sir, that not just builds resilience for the country, but also allows ordinary Barbadians, sir, to be able to get a better return on the investment and in terms of the process going forward. Now, sir, I'm mindful of the fact, too, that as part of our thrust to manage the way that we not just produce energy and consume energy, because I'm aware, sir, that over the last few years, certainly the government as well as a number of private sector bodies have embarked on not just renewable energy, but certainly energy efficiency implementation, sir, to make sure that we manage our energy consumption. And as an economist, sir, where there is growth in the economy, sir, there's typically also growth in electricity in terms of its consumption. But these days, sir, certainly with respect to the greater uptake of renewable energy, and as I mentioned, sir, the energy efficiency measures that are being taken into place, it means, sir, that that concept of almost a one-to-one relationship, sir, between the increase in energy consumption redounding to increase in growth in gross domestic product, that may not necessarily, sir, be the same relationship going forward. And certainly to the extent, sir, that we want, as a government, to be able to make sure that we can deliver energy costs, sir, that are competitive, such that the implementation and the uptake of renewable energy, sir, on the one hand, whilst being able to significantly reduce the amount of money that we pay out every year, sir, with respect to fossil fuels, that the transition, sir, allows for us to be able to not just deliver return on investment because of the renewable nature of the exercise, but of the investment, sorry, but certainly, sir, that we strategically seek to make sure that we can bring down, sir, the cost of doing business. Because once we can reduce the cost, sir, of doing business for everybody, then it means then that really and truly the economy not just grows, but our level of competitiveness, sir, will increase significantly. And this is something, sir, that we have to be very, very, very mindful of. And I think to the extent that whether it's the determination as to whether there's a monopoly in any specific space, whether it is in generation, distribution, sir, or even with respect to storage and those areas, sir, that our thrust as a government, sir, is to be as inclusive as possible with the overall mandate, as I said, sir, of being able to make sure that we can determine the cost, the underlying cost of doing business in a fashion, sir, that really does help to propel and deliver jobs and deliver growth in the economy. Now, sir, we have also set our sights are on that 2030 target of being able to become a country that is fossil fuel free. And truly, sir, that means that is a very ambitious yet achievable target. However, sir, let me just, and this is not in any way, sir, to be contrary, but to be realistic in the context of resilience. And I think it's a point that is certainly worth making, because members would have alluded to the fact that that I have renewable energy systems at my property. Now, sir, the reality is this. Climate change, certainly, and I think we all will agree, has delivered for the Caribbean, sir, much more intense storms, much sooner, sir, than we have ever seen in the past. And in the last few years, sir, we have seen a lot of evidence of that. Most of those Category 5 storms, sir, that hit Barbados, certainly that hit Dominica, they were Category 1s by the time that they were in the longitude as for Barbados. And in a very short space of time, sir, the intensity obviously increased in terms of the storms, and delivered clearly what would have been very devastating impact with respect to the island's infrastructure that were hit. And let me say, sir, that 2 years ago, I think it was Hurricane Irma that went all the way to Florida and pretty much had Florida, sir, in a mess. And I recall visiting Florida, sir, 2 weeks after the storm had passed through. It was either Maria or Irma, sir. I forget the name at the moment. But the point is this, sir, that some 2 weeks after, and as you can imagine, sir, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, sir, by any stretch of the imagination, is much more developed infrastructurally than any part, perhaps, in the Eastern Caribbean, for the most part. And the thing that struck me, sir, is that the electrical grid was still out for most of Florida. And the critical thing was almost every household in Florida, sir, had a generator, because they understood, sir, the level of why you needed to be prepared. And so whilst I may, and as many persons may, we want to invest in renewable energy, sir, I want us to also imagine that for most installations, the threshold with respect to what the engineers state is that most of these installations with respect to solar panels only really goes up to a Category 2, maybe a Category 3, with respect to being able to withstand the direct impact. And so the point I'm making, sir, is that once we are moving forward with a thrust to become a fossil fuel-free society, by engaging in alternative energy, there is a risk, sir, that if there is a significant storm event, that the capability to be able to for us as households, as communities, sir, and as a country, that the need for some kind of alternative, in the absence of a power grid, sir, being capable of being updated and put back into a production in a timely manner, would require, sir, some measure of resilience. So our definition now of resilience, sir, is pretty much multifaceted, because on the one hand, even though, as I say, sir, in Florida, it took a number of months before they even got the entire state back up and running with respect to electricity, where it was staying, sir, it took another week before the electricity actually was restored. And the reality is, sir, is that every household, almost every household in Florida, I mean, all of the Home Depots and the Lowe's, sir, they were out of generators. And the reality is that as part of our, certainly it's hurricane season, sir, and part of our hurricane preparedness in a real sense, sir, for a myriad of reasons, households in Barbados, even mine, sir, because if my solar panels go sir, in the hurricane, then I am at risk like anybody else. And therefore, sir, it means that even as we move towards a process whereby we utilize much more renewable energy, there is still the risk associated with a significant storm event that there could be significant disruption with respect to electricity. And so this is something, sir, that I believe every household, every business, as a matter of continuity, ought to have in mind, sir, because that speaks to not just preparedness, but also for persons to be resilient and safe in the event, sir, that there is a significant storm event. And this is not something to be scoffed at, because as you would recall, sir, that immediately after the passing of Maria and Irma, certainly in Dominica for sure, there were issues related to safety, because obviously, sir, once the electricity is down and persons start to get past that first couple of days of the trauma, then there's a certain fear that starts to set in, sir, unfortunately. And admittedly, sir, the presence, in a sense, of electricity helps to provide security, because it simply means that persons can see at night, they can traverse their communities at night, sir. And it's something that, as a country, as part of our hurricane preparedness toolkit, sir, this is something that I believe, sir, is absolutely critical. Even though we are advancing to a point where we want, for the most part, in terms of the core of the economy, to make sure that we are fossil fuel free by 2030. But there's a realism, sir, with respect to being able to make sure that as individuals, as households, and as communities, that in the event, sir, of a significant storm event impacting Barbados, that much of what we are discussing here today with respect to these amendments, as it relates to being able to decentralize, we're talking about decentralizing the grid. The Honourable Member for Christchurch East spoke about these matters and opening up the space for different players to participate in that space, that we have to be conscious, sir, of our location and to be truly prepared with respect to being able to make sure that not just that our energy consumption, sir, provides opportunities for Barbadians, that our energy consumption will be much more efficient, because the use of less electricity, I suspect, sir, will become a feature going forward, as certainly all of our appliances are much more energy efficient than they were 20 years ago, despite the fact that the number of devices that we are using today is significantly more than what we were using up to 5 years ago, for that matter. But the point is, sir, that with the advancement of the technology, that notwithstanding, that the actual energy consumption with respect to being able to service and charge these devices, and certainly, sir, as we use much more renewable sources, that the cost to be able to power our homes, to power our businesses, that I believe, sir, that cost has to be a central part of the policy framework with respect to being able to manage the way forward. And the truth is, sir, that how we design, certainly, the financial instruments, and I think having had the visit, sir, from the President of Kenya and his delegation last week, and I want to speak to this in this way, sir, because whilst we have said that we want to build out our infrastructure in Barbados, during our talks, certainly with the Kenyan delegation last week, we discussed on a very preliminary basis, sir, the prospect of being able to leverage investment into Kenya with respect to larger solar farms in Kenya, and certainly in the context of Africa. From that perspective, given, sir, that we can use our financial capability right here in Barbados, and certainly, sir, being able to lead it from a CSME perspective, to be able to make investments in areas in Africa to solve some of the problems that we're talking about in terms of infrastructure on the continent, which provides our, we are of African descent, sir. We are part of their diaspora, and to the extent that there will be opportunities available for investment in Africa to be able to build out some of this infrastructure. These are some of the structures, sir, that we would want over the course as we continue those discussions and negotiations, that Barbadians recognize that our thrust, sir, with respect to investing in renewable energy is not defined or confined to Barbados. And therefore, we want to be able to pivot, sir, and take advantage of opportunities not just in Barbados and the single market and economy as far as CARICOM is concerned, but to be able to leverage the significant opportunity on the African continent to be able to help bring, sir, a level of development and release, sir, in a way that perhaps hasn't happened in the past, which allows us to be able to build, sir, relationships with our brothers and sisters on the continent, whilst at the same time, sir, being able to deliver a greater level of return, given, sir, that whilst we have recognized over the last 25, 30 years that China has grown significantly, sir, that it is our view, and as we have started as a government to engage actively on the continent, as you are aware, sir, we are going to be opening up the embassy, sorry, the High Commission in Ghana pretty soon. Fairly shortly after that, sir, we intend to do the same with respect to Kenya. We've also done a mission to Morocco. All of this, sir, is with a specific eye to being able to locate investment opportunities, not just to attract investment to Barbados, but to open the space, sir, with respect to Barbadians, as well as the diaspora for Barbadians, for whom, sir, as we embark on the Gathering 2020, and we are asking Barbadians to come back home next year, that what we want to be able to create, sir, is a framework where not just Barbadians residing in Barbados, but Barbadians from the diaspora, that we put the structures in place, sir, that would allow for the leveraging of, for lack of a better term, sir, crowdfunding, to be able to identify and take advantage of opportunities on the African continent as a way, sir, of making sure that we can leverage, sir, not just the technology, but certainly, sir, help to build out the infrastructure on the continent and to be able to get a better return on our investment. Now, sir, as you are aware, Republic Bank, I believe 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, would have bought a bank in Ghana. And therefore, there's already a presence with respect to Caribbean banking, but certainly through the fact that Republic Bank is here and is already in Ghana, that we already have, sir, an opening, if you like. We've actively engaged with the Ghanaian government. We've just concluded, sir, some bilateral talks with the Kenyan government. And therefore, sir, as we map out this process with respect to not just enhancing the resilience for Barbados, but by the same token, sir, to get Barbadians to recognize that there are opportunities, sir, for investment outside of Barbados. And therefore, our job, sir, as government, and certainly within the Ministry of Finance, is as a part, sir, of development of a new investment framework. In our Covenant of Hope, sir, we spoke to how we will engage the world, and we also spoke to the new national consciousness. Part of that new national consciousness, sir, is to recognize opportunity, certainly on the continent, across a myriad of areas. And we believe, sir, that as we debate these amendments today with respect to the bill before the House, that we need to now sensitize Barbadians that as we move forward, that there will be opportunities outside of Barbados that we want to be able to map out within the energy space, and therefore the structuring of the appropriate instruments to be able to leverage that investment will not only, sir, reside with Barbadians who are resident here, but we want to leverage our entire diaspora, sir, to be able to engage actively on the African continent, to be able to help improve the lives of our brothers and sisters on the continent, and at the same time, sir, bringing a level of return to ordinary Barbadians right here at home and those who may reside in the diaspora. So it is important, sir, that we as a government and certainly as members of parliament actively engage our people throughout this process because, sir, this is truly democratizing the investment culture in Barbados. And whether it is done collectively, sir, through institutional arrangements or allowing individuals to be able to do so by into those instruments, these are things that we are in concept, and we want to be able to on the establishment of clear opportunities, have them aligned such that we are in a position, sir, to allow Barbadians to be able to invest, but also invest abroad in a way that allows for us to be able to meet that meets within the context of our balance of payment arrangements, but also, sir, as I said, with a view to being able to advance Barbados's lead role with respect to renewable energy, as we have done over the past 30 years. Now, sir, this is a tall ask, and the reality is, sir, that as we go through the Barbados economic recovery and transformation, sir, that the growth trajectory with respect to the economy, sir, as we try to make sure that it is as inclusive as possible, must not only focus, sir, on domestic opportunities. And therefore, our thrust is to unlock both the investment in Barbados, but to also seek to unlock investment opportunities for Barbadians abroad. And energy is certainly one avenue, sir, where there are opportunities, and we want to be able to make sure that we have the appropriate structures to deliver on that mandate, because we have heard, sir, the complaints about the fees being charged by the banking industry. On the one hand, we've heard, sir, given what the previous administration did, sir, with respect to the relaxation of the minimum deposit rate, sir, as it relates to banking, and the loss of income, sir, with respect to ordinary depositors, sir, in this country, that the government's mission now, sir, is to make sure that we can provide the scope for alternative investments, and we believe that this is an area, sir, that once properly structured and properly communicated, sir, with all Barbadians, and I say all Barbadians, sir, at home or abroad, that we should be able to achieve, I think, a significant amount of results in being able to take advantage, sir, of these opportunities. Now, sir, we are in the midst of the hurricane season right now. And as I spoke earlier about the effort to be resilient, sir, and as you know, sir, we always knock on that wood at this time of year, because it is critical that as we go through this particular period, that persons are as prepared as possible. And to the extent that this bill, sir, I think creates the underlying framework, and as a member for Christchurch East said, we are at a point now, sir, where we are trying to, it's almost like we're in the middle of the takeover zone, sir, in a relay. So we are at a point with respect to the existing infrastructure almost at the end of its useful life, but you now have to make decisions in terms of how and where and how fast you go. But you only have so much time, sir, before in the takeover zone to be able to make sure that you can get the baton passed. And this is the period of time, sir, that we have to make the decisions with respect to where certainly this country is going with respect to its energy policy on the one hand, but certainly, sir, with respect to providing opportunities for ordinary Barbadians. And, sir, the reality is this: we want Barbadians to take part as early as possible in the process, because those who take part early in the process, sir, typically will get the best return. Those who come in late, as they were saying in the phantom comet, sir, is pretty much, sir, a situation where it is just scraps. So therefore, we have to decide as a country, and we have to decide as business people, as individuals, as credit unions, cooperatives, sir, as government, how we are going to create these structures that will allow for persons to confidently, sir, engage in this process, because we don't want, sir, to have the baton pass too late in the game. We want to make sure that we are in full flight as we, so to speak, sir, exit the takeover zone. And this piece of legislation, sir, I think provides, in part, the confidence to be able to allow for the, certainly for the Light and Power to be able to make those decisions that they have to make. But at the same time, sir, it will signal to the other potential investors that there are opportunities which we can now take up. And I think that with that clear signal, sir, and with this government, sir, seeking to move as quickly as we can to make sure that the structures are there, that the policy certainty with respect to how we will move forward would allow persons to be able to make those decisions in a timely manner, such that not just that the grid becomes much more resilient, not just that the grid becomes smarter, which is good. As the member for Christchurch East, sir, was delivering his presentation, I actually logged on to see how much energy it was harvesting. Since he spoke, he made reference to me during his presentation. And the reality is, sir, that in the context of a smart Barbados, it means that as householders, and this is one of the things that as householders, sir, that I believe as we move forward and the technology advances, sir, that householders who often, sir, complain of the light bills too high and all of these are pending issues, sir, that being able to understand truthfully, sir, exactly what it is that is consuming the energy in your house. Oftentimes, sir, you know, as I've said in the past, sir, when people build their houses, sir, and they move in, they got their appliances, sir, they become like part of the family. And 20 years will go by, sir, 25 years will go by, and the old fridge still there that the children used to go in and open, sir, and the fridge is part of the family. But in today's world, sir, that fridge that was bought 20, 25 years ago, sir, is probably the most inefficient refrigerator that one will find, but it's part of the family. And therefore, oftentimes when persons are complaining in part about the light bill, it is in fact, sir, because the fridge, which is part of the family, which everybody's familiar with, you know, and we don't want to change the fridge. But sometimes, sir, we have to make those changes in order to make sure you can see the savings with respect to that. Certainly, sir, I know the Ministry of Energy has done some good work in trying to roll out the LED light bulb across the country. I think that effort will continue, but that needs to advance. Because, sir, the truth is that as we change out for much more energy efficient appliances, these are the things that as households we can do to make sure that our own energy consumption certainly is less. It goes directly straight into our pocket, sir. So I would encourage all Barbadians, certainly, to make those strategic investments in a small way, as your part, certainly, in being able to help save foreign exchange. And the reality is, sir, is that what that does, if we were to do that, sir, and we do so quickly, what that does is to really give us a sense as to what is the new baseline cost, if you like, with respect to energy consumption. Because it is how we use the energy that we are producing now, sir, in the most efficient way. So we want to be using energy now, sir, in the 21st century for innovation, for new building out new industries rather than producing the same amount of energy to power houses and our businesses the same way that we were doing 25, 30 years ago. And so therefore, it really does mean, sir, that any excess energy beyond what I refer to as the base, which means that if we've all done all of the energy efficiency retrofits that we could possibly do, anything beyond that base, that new base, sir, is really what we should be now looking to use to drive innovation, to drive growth in the economy, because that will certainly mean, sir, that we are in a position, in a sense, sir, to become much more competitive with respect to the use of energy in the economy, to be able to drive growth as far as the overall economy is concerned. And with that, sir, it means that with respect to being able for ordinary persons to take advantage of these opportunities, that
I remember you
will
must be
make
watching
sense.
the clock.
Sorry?
I must be watching the clock all the
No,
time.
I was watching the clock only.
I just control the clock.
Okay.
I'm in control
Okay,
of the clock.
Such that persons see the real benefits, sir, with respect to their own personal household impact, but also, sir, in being able to see a rate of return that is consistent, because if the amount of energy that you're producing, sir, is actually being used for what I term new productive purposes, then that growth with respect to the economy, sir, will come back as part of the rate of return for household investment. And certainly as we look out, sir, to take advantage of opportunities, not just in CSME, but new opportunities that as a government, sir, we will seek to negotiate and create the structures to allow for investment on the African continent, that we can really move beyond just saying that Barbados will be a fossil fuel-free economy by 2030. And the true essence of our thrust to democratize and to make sure that the growth is as inclusive as possible, that Barbadians can invest with confidence, their hard-earned monies, and certainly, sir, many Barbadians would have received a significant amount of tax release last month, and the first, sir, that they would have seen for some time. And so therefore, that increase in disposable income, sir, will go a long way with respect to, I know that households under the last government, sir, would have run up a significant amount of debt, and we know that I would impress upon persons, sir, that as they pay down some of that debt, that they also set aside some of that new disposable income, sir, in some savings. As we seek to create the structures, sir, that not just to save and put it on the bank where they can get charged, but we're trying to put the structures in place such that that increased disposable income, sir, that we can make those strategic investments so that ordinary Barbadians will be able to benefit from that. And so this bill before the House, sir, I believe is very, these amendments to this bill before the Chamber are very important with respect to helping shape the future of Barbados. And I'm through you, sir, I'm asking all members of the public, sir, to, in a sense, stay tuned, because I believe that this determination here today, and as it goes through the process with respect to the legislative framework, and as we go through this transition period, sir, that we want to make sure that persons are on board as early as possible, such that the return on whatever investment that they're able to make, even if it's only $50, sir, if it's $50,000, sir, or $500,000, sir, that persons will be able to see a return on that investment. And it is our job, sir, to make it, one, as easy as possible to deliver on those investments, but making sure, sir, that the necessary, not just due diligence, but the competence with respect to being able to deliver on these goals, that they are met, and that ordinary Barbadians in their own living will be able to live and experience, sir, the wealth that we intend to create for Barbadians through the active, sir, deployment of not just domestic resources in Barbados, but being able to leverage our connections with the diaspora, which we hope to inculcate, sir, certainly as part of our regathering exercise next year, with a view, sir, of, in a sense, refreshing or resetting the investment mandate for Barbadians. And so, sir, I am happy to support the amendments to this Electric Light and Power Bill 2019, because I believe, sir, that as we go forward as a government and as a country, that this will set the framework within which Barbadians will be able to participate not just in the energy revolution domestically, but as we seek to conclude our negotiations, sir, bilaterally, certainly on the African continent, that we will be able to make an indelible mark, sir, with respect to our brothers and sisters on the continent in helping to reshape, sir, the fortunes on the continent, and be able, sir, at the same time, to be able to build bridges and to build relationships between ordinary Barbadians, sir, and all African citizens, to the extent, sir, that there is a synergy with respect to the way that we want to engage the world in redeveloping, sir, a new national consciousness, such that we see, sir, the African continent not just as our ancestral home, but certainly, sir, as a place where ordinary Barbadians can feel comfortable that not just they can visit, but they can put their money, sir, get a decent rate of return for the opportunities that will present themselves on that continent. And we believe, sir, that not just energy, but across a whole range of areas, that we do this, and we do this, sir, from our hearts to make sure that we can improve and deliver, sir, a better life for all of our people. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Honourable Member for St. Michael South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. You know, there are some very important pieces of legislation, sir, that we bring to the Parliament that I believe sometimes are not ventilated enough in public, sir, so that the benefits to ordinary people are not known by the people for whom we bring these benefits and in whose interests we operate primarily. I support this bill because it has positive implications for the people in St. Michael South, the people in the city, people all over St. Michael, sir, ordinary people, and I will explain that in a minute. But the reality is, sir, that Barbados is a net importer of fossil fuel. And fossil fuel, sir, is extremely expensive. It is extremely expensive. Additionally, sir, you are subject to the whims and fancies, sir, of other people, because it is really and truly other people who dictate the price of these fossil fuels. 1 minute you're paying X amount of money per barrel, then the next you're paying X amount of money per barrel, depending on how other people would want to dictate the prices, sir, and consequentially, sir, dictate the terms to you. I mean, there's a whole series of things behind the scene that dictate the price of these fossil fuels, and developing countries, sir, often find themselves on the receiving end of it. And Barbados, sir, is a net importer. So you could begin to imagine that we have a deficit. It will cause a financial deficit, an energy deficit. It will cause a deficit. That is why we need to start rethinking how we look at this, sir. But I'm told, sir, that for every dollar spent to consume fossil fuel, Barbados loses about 64 cents. Because the benefits that we realize from the fossil fuels, sir, it is costing us more to realize them. Such is the cost of the fossil fuels. And I remember when I was a student many years ago, and I brought some friends of mine home from Boston. They were from all over the world. We came from Boston. From my friend who had come from Israel, when we were driving from the airport, he remarked at how brilliant the sun was, how beautiful the country was. And on the second day that he was here, having noticed the brilliance of the sun, he also asked how much of Barbados is fueled by the sun, and proceeded to tell me that this is a good few years ago, how much we were wasting this opportunity that the sun gave us, and that they would have loved to have this amount of sun. There comes a time, sir, where maybe you get there late, but you get there. And in these amendments, sir, I believe we are showing that we have gotten there, or at least we are getting there. It is also the case, sir, that the price of fuels in Barbados are expensive because taxation on fuels are expensive too. Government taxes account, I'm told, for about 50% of the price of what we pay for fossil fuel. And sir, we have to find different ways of generating energy. We have to find new ways that make sense. All of us in this room are well aware that renewable energy is the future. All of us, sir, who engage with the rest of the world, which is all of us, we know that renewable energy is the future. The world is moving toward renewable energy. And sir, we have an opportunity to utilize more of our domestic resources in a way that would allow us to benefit. So we benefit in two ways. We benefit directly because we're using our own resources, but we save, and we save significant amounts because we don't have to pay the exorbitant prices for fossil fuels, sir, the prices of which are dictated by other people. And I feel we have to get to a point where we find it almost, the idea of it so revolting that the terms under which we live are dictated to us by other people. And we have enough opportunities here for renewable energy, sir, to start to dictate our own terms and to serve our people better. And this, fundamentally, is what we are doing today. But, sir, the potential benefits are going to depend on the investment. You have to create a climate that allows people to invest. You cannot come and bring a situation where you talk about renewable energy. You say you're going to go toward being fossil fuel free by 2030, sir. But yet, all of the architecture that has built the entire system, sir, serves to serve one company or one person. You have to change it up so that you have to allow other people, sir, to invest. And I must say, it is so far the relationship with the Barbados Light and Power has been one that is pleasant. And even though as we attempt to change the circumstances, sir, the status quo must change in the name of development. That's what we have to do. And to allow other people to be able to invest. If we were to get to that massive target that we've set for ourselves, to be fossil fuel free by 2030, I do not think it is overly ambitious, sir. Barbados has always punched above its weight. We've always set large ambitions for ourselves. Our aspirations have always been greater than our size. The reality for some, sir, may be looking on that they do not believe we can achieve it. But we've set it for ourselves, sir, and we are working steadfastly toward it every day. Because it is more than being able to say that you're fossil fuel free, sir. It is about self-determination. A country saying that it wants to handle its own business, and that we have the resources, sir, to be able to do it. So the Barbados Light and Power, sir, the last franchise I understand that was issued allowed the Barbados Light and Power to continue from 1986 for another 42 years. And so now we're at that point, sir, where we have to start renegotiating the terms and looking at new ways forward, sir. And the Electric Light and Power Act that was passed in 2013, sir, and proclaimed in 2015, called on what they called independent power producers. It created these independent power producers, sir. And that would allow for other people to be able to do it. But we have to make the amendments to allow this, to bring this into reality, to give other people that opportunity. And sir, as you do so, what you are doing is systematically breaking down a monopoly. A monopoly that has existed in Barbados for years, for creation, for its generation, its supply, distribution, all of the infrastructure that we know, everything that we know in relation to electricity, sir, comes from one place in Barbados, as we know. As children, we couldn't even begin to conceptualize that there will be somebody else either supplying or generating electricity. This is the conversation we are having now. And we're asking, how do we create the system, sir, that allows other people to be able to participate in a meaningful way. In a meaningful way, sir. Not for scraps, but in a meaningful way in this conversation. And in all of my reading, sir, I'm as Minister of Blue Economy, sir, obviously this consumes me, but there is the possibility, sir, as has happened in other places in the world, that have attempted to utilize or go toward renewable energy, sir. This kind of energy poverty, a situation where only certain people are allowed to participate in this new conversation. Because poor people, sir, cannot begin to afford the infrastructure necessary to have renewable energy. They can't afford, in many cases, if you want to go toward photovoltaics, they can't afford the panels. If it is that you want to do wind, sir, they can't afford to set up the windmills and turbines and all these various things. So you create from the start a situation where poor people or regular people are not able to even participate for their own benefit. So that the concept of sustainable development, sir, becomes an irony in a way, because you're not sustaining the people who need it the most. And that whatever we do, and I've told the Minister of Energy this on more than one occasion, whatever we do and however we do it, we must ensure, sir, that there is no creation of energy poverty, sir, and perpetuating it, sir, in our attempts to move toward a fossil fuel-free Barbados. So that everybody must have a chance. And it's not only about being able to develop and to create and generate enough energy for yourself, but it's also about being able to generate enough to then turn around and become an entrepreneur and to sell some back to the grid. So that when you are talking about these independent power producers, sir, it has to be ordinary people too who are allowed to generate enough to sell some back to the grid. That is what makes sense to me. And I cannot conceive, sir, in clear conscience of a situation where we create a country that is forward-looking, or it looks like it's forward-looking, or forward-thinking, or looks like it is forward-thinking, sir. But when you break it down, sir, and you peel back, people who are supposed to be benefiting from these forward-thinking and forward-looking methodologies, sir, are not benefiting. That is the real essence and the real test of it. I am committed, sir, to ensuring that ordinary Barbadians live a better life. I believe we all are. I know the Minister of Energy, sir, has given his commitment, sir, that there can be no furthering of the poverty gap under his watch. And that is what this is about. That at the end of the day, the people who matter, sir, are the ordinary people. Yes, we want to create more energy, sir. We want people to live well, sir, but it has to be for ordinary people. And I am thankful to see that the monopoly is going to be broken up. I'm thankful too, sir, that Barbados Light and Power has been such good partners in this process. I'm also thankful, sir, that the opportunity will come for ordinary people to have a chance to live in this country that all of us love, sir. You know, the government of Barbados must take the lead in all of this. And that is why there are a number of things that I'm seeing the government doing and things that they have done, sir, that make a lot of sense. The Smart Energy Program, for example. That is an excellent program, sir. The DREAM project, which would allow us to have more photovoltaics, a good program. And the Smart Fund, as we become more efficient in technology. All of these things, sir, are good for the country. Mr. Speaker, sir.
I know that honourable members do not want to be ejected from this chamber or are asked to leave. I am sure of that. Continue, honourable member.
Thank you, sir. This, Mr. Speaker, sir, for us, is who we are fundamentally as a government. It is that we have to be, sir, we have to balance our desire to move to become a forward-thinking, progressive country, sir. But by a definition for us, that means everybody moves forward. You know, sometimes when you look, there is a concept in development, sir, called distorted development. It is where you look at a country, sir, you rank its development profile, whether it's by any of these indicators that we may use, but if you look at the Human Development Index and you rank it and the country is doing well, sir. For example, there were times when you looked at in like the early 2000s when China and India started doing extremely well. And if you look at the real development in those countries, a lot of development happening on the mainland, booming, what looks like development, but when you go into rural parts of the country, no development at all. So that your overall numbers shift, but the lives of many people don't shift. So you have what is called a distorted development, sir. We cannot have that here. I don't support it. So when we start talking about how we move toward development and we making our targets, sir, it has to be for real people, and this is what this is about. And you know, there are many people in the private sector who are interested in renewable energy. In fact, many people who come to see me on issues on the blue economy want to talk about renewable energy. It's a conversation that me and the minister have all the time. How are we going to shape Barbados in the next 20 years? And there's a number of reasons why people want to do that. I mean, we're moving toward it. It's going to be in the regulations, sir. There are financial benefits to it. I mean, people are not genuinely, business people, Mr. Speaker, sir, you know very well, are not normally just genuinely, generally altruistic folk. They don't come because they like us. They don't set up because they want to, generally, normally, they don't just set up because they're in the business of making you feel good about yourself. Many times, most of the time, people who set up businesses, sir, have a motive, sir, for profit. That's why they set up. That's why they're doing it, sir. So there's money in renewable energy. Of course, so people are going to come. And those of us who have the responsibility to govern, sir, while they make money, sir, we got to make people comfortable at the end of the day. And, sir, some companies also recognize it's part of their social responsibility. You know, a lot of the NGOs with whom I interact, sir, who really and truly have no real need or real pursuit of money, sir, they have a genuine interest in the development of other people and the country. So there are all these reasons. That is why people are coming. And I want to talk about a few that I feel are relevant to us as part of the conversation on renewable energy. We could talk about wind, sir, but we have. We could talk about solar, the minister has. I feel that there is a possibility, sir, for us to make a future for us in biomass. The minister spoke about it, sir, in relation to maybe what we could do with some of the cane. There is this, what was it called, tamarind, wild tamarind? River tamarind, sir. That grows all over Barbados, that produces significant amounts of energy. People are telling me to convert the seaweed into energy, so we tried, and we probably could, but the amount of energy that it produces is significantly less than other forms of algae. So, but there is a potential, sir, to use some of these things, sir, to generate energy. But I have responsibility also, sir, for the fish markets. And I know that there is a substantial amount of waste from the fish markets. Some we've recently decided, sir, to convert to fish silage so that we can use as fertilizer, but some is still being dumped. Yesterday at a presentation, I understood from the young lady who presented from the sanitation, sir, that a lot of the what is going to the dump is also this biomass, a lot of fish waste, waste from the farms, a lot of grass. A lot of things, sir, that could be used to produce energy. We will never get this right, sir, unless we start thinking of Barbados as a circular economy. We keep out what we can keep out, sir, but once it's in, we use it. So that when I said to the public once a few months ago that we are wasting significant portions of the fish, people say, oh, no, we eat all the fish, but we don't. When we're throwing away the bones and we're throwing away the head, people used to use head soup. They don't see much of that now. But people are taking these things other places and making medicine. And if we don't want to make medicine, sir, we could use it to generate energy as part of our biomass, sir. And what am I talking about? What am I talking about when I'm talking about biomass, sir? I'm talking about things that were organic matter, sir. Things that were alive in the recent past. You know, animals, plants, various things. Not that things that have been dead for a long time, but things that have been recently alive, sir, that you could turn around and use that to make energy. The amount of things that we waste. When I go to the fish market sometimes and I see the big buckets of the things that we're wasting, and I keep saying we have to find a way. We have to find a way to do something with this. Sir, those could be used to make energy. And if we do it, when it becomes a small business, I hope it becomes a small business for somebody in the fish market. Somebody who's already in the business. So that when I say that this energy poverty that exists in other places cannot exist here, is because the simple things that people could use to make money. You know, once you discover that something could make money, all of a sudden, it's no longer the terrain for poor people. All of a sudden, something is able to make money. People fly from all over the place and determine that it is now theirs. You know? Things that were taboo in the past, sir. Big countries now all of a sudden realize there's money in it and it ain't so taboo no more. All kinds of things happen. This is a strange world. This is a strange world that we're living in. But we'll have that conversation, I suppose, soon enough. And sir, in relation to the ocean, sir, we could also be using ocean thermal energy, sir. We could also be using the ebb and flow of the current, sir, to generate, and take all these possibilities, Mr. Speaker, sir. My point is, at the end of the day, that we have to think bigger. We have to think bigly, according to a certain president. But we have to think bigger about the world. We have to think bigger about the opportunities before us, sir. And that there are so many things that we can use now to generate energy. It is scary. But that we have to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. If we do not, sir, it will become, for all of us, sir, unaffordable, unsustainable. And I do not think, beyond all of that, that is not the kind of world that we want to live in. That is a dangerous world because it's unhealthy for the environment. The Honourable Member, the Honourable Minister in the Ministry of Finance just spoke about what is happening with hurricanes and the climate change. It's going to be dangerous for all of us, sir. And so we have to move from it. You know, because I'm on Light and Power, though, sir, I feel as if I have to say a few things about constituencies like ours. St. Michael constituencies, St. Michael South, St. Michael Central. Sir, we're in urban Barbados, in St. Michael South Central, with whom I share a border. Many nights, if you're walking through our constituencies, as you would know, sir, dark, 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 dark. So that if you're telling me about renewable energy, that's fair enough. And we have to go there. But again, it has to be for poor people too. So that when you come with these nice light bulbs and these fancy light poles, put some in our constituencies, why don't you? Because a lot of the constituencies now are extremely dark. St. Michael South is extremely dark. I canvass your constituencies, so dark. And when you bring these renewable energy, sir, you know, because you have the small solar generating, the small photovoltaics on the pole, so it allows the bulb to be brighter and run longer. That is efficiency. But it is not effectiveness if it is not reaching the people that need it. I would like to see a lot of those lining our St. Michael constituencies, sir. We came into office, sir, we said we were going to make the country brighter than it was. We were going to take it out of the darkness. And we did, in many ways. But in real terms, sir, we still have to take it out of the darkness. So I'm just saying, when we start doing all these lights, sir, that I would like to see Chelsea Road, because Chelsea is very dark. Parts of Britton's Hill, very dark. Sir, I mean, St. Michael is a dark place. You walk through almost any part of St. Michael at night. Just because we're so close to the city, one may assume that you have the lights. Sir, we don't. I know that you know you don't. Mr. Speaker, sir, if you were speaking here, sir, I know you'll be speaking for your people saying that you want more lights. And it's not really light and power. This is a conversation that we have to have with the Ministry of Transport and Works, to whom I write all the time, asking for more lights in St. Michael, because St. Michael South is dark, as is St. Michael Central, as is South Central, as is the city of Bridgetown, believe it or not. And so I write and I ask for more lights, and because when renewable energy, sir, the initial outlay may be more expensive, but over time it becomes much more affordable. So I'm just saying when people start to manage their dollar, they may not feel it necessary to put that expensive lighting in poor constituencies, sir. I want some in St. Michael South for me, some in St. Michael Central for you, sir, some in St. Michael South Central for the honourable member who sits next to me, sir. And I want some in the St. Michael West Central, St. Michael West. 2. Because it is about people. It is not about politics. And St. Michael remains a constituency, sir, that is extremely dark at night and extremely dangerous at night, sir. I was in Costa Rica, and I'm getting ready to close. So I was in Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a country that recognizes the need to focus on renewable energy, to be energy efficient, to be smart. I visited this place, I think it was called Cayol. Cayol, you could talk on what you want.
What's the point of order, Honourable Member?
Honourable member is misleading the House, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable member is saying that St. Michael South is dark, that St. Michael South Central is dark. Oh.
Continue, Honourable Member. I'm listening.
There's a policy. Every other lamppost gets lamps. The lamps cost money, hundreds of dollars, $8 million that it costs normally. If we are to put lamps on every single lamppost, it'll be $16 million. There are costs, and I anticipate and I appreciate that certain parts will have difficulties, but we also have to weigh that with the ability for the country to pay.
What's the point of order, Honourable Member?
The honourable member misled the House with respect to the darkness of the particular constituencies.
There was no point of order. Honourable Member, please continue. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for protecting me from my friend. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have canvassed St. Michael South enough to tell you that at night, St. Michael South is dark. And it has been so for years, long before the honourable member, who's doing a wonderful job, sir. But I was in Costa Rica. And while I was there, sir, I saw what is real attempt, sir, to have to develop a circular economy. When water was coming off the roof, sir, capturing the water, using the sun, sir, during the day, sir, to keep the building, obviously with the batteries, but to capture the heat, sir. The breath, the air conditioning in the room, sir, I didn't even fully understand the system, but the air conditioning in the room, the heat coming out of your breath was also captured. This amazing system. Obviously, it's going to be costly, sir, but it was this amazing system, sir, that recognizes the need for us, or for them, to be energy efficient. I went to the hotel restaurant the night, sir, and I had a drink, and a soft drink. You know I'm not a drinker, but I had a soda, sir. And the guy put a stirrer in the soda, and I asked him, is this a straw? Because I don't use straws. I said, is this a straw? He said, we don't use straws here, sir. Because he recognized, sir, he understood the bigger picture in terms of being fossil fuel free and to move away from plastic, sir. When we ban plastic, sir, we ban petroleum-based plastics, and that's the point. We didn't just ban plastics, we banned petroleum-based plastics. And all part of the movement, sir, to be fossil fuel free and to be conscious of the environment in which we live, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am smiling because anyways. And sir, lastly, sir, I also want to talk about the innovation, sir, that I believe must accompany this revolution. You know, I heard, sir, in a conversation recently, sir, we were talking about the revolutions, these different industrial revolutions and the technological revolution, sir. And I was reminded, sir, that small countries like ours, countries, sir, of black people, sir, are still recovering from the first and the second revolution. And that if you're not careful, all these revolutions serve only, sir, to deepen certain circumstances, to advance certain people, and to retard other people. But I, as part of this new revolution, sir, this new thinking on the world, sir, we have to be clear that the innovation must come from the ground. The innovation must come from regular people. When there's a company in Barbados called Oasis. It's a small company now. They're using sargassum seaweed to make soap. Wonderful. They're trying to there are other people, sir, who are converting it to fertilizer, sir. Wonderful. I mean, amazing things that are happening, sir, as the country recognizes that it must take care of its environment. And, sir, we're doing the same in the ministry. We're having now conversations around BioRock, which is a technology, sir. As we try to rebuild the coral reef, we're using electrical impulses to rebuild the coral reef, sir. It's a project we're doing with the Blue-Green Initiative, and it's going very well, being led by assisted by a very able senator, sir. But the point of the matter is, sir, that we have to use these things now to develop. Now, if you're using electrical impulses, it means you're using electricity. Again, fossil fuel. But part of that, sir, has to be as we build out this BioRock, and our intention, sir, hopefully, is to be able to rebuild coral reef all around Barbados using this technology, which means it's going to call for us to use energy, sir, and that has to be a renewable source of energy. Because what's the point in trying to protect one ecosystem, sir, and in the process of so doing, you're destroying another? But it doesn't make sense. So it has to be part of a circular conversation. And so I've gone through all of this, sir, as I close at great length, to make the point, first of all, that I support the legislation, I support the bill, to say that I am thankful to see that there are going to be other players in this space, because other players have to be in this space, to allow young people, sir, ordinary people, sir, to be involved in the generation now of new energy. You know, I feel sometimes, sir, I have to reflect, you know, you don't realize when you're getting old. You know, you feel that you're still young, but you're not really, because I'm talking sometimes to children. So I spoke to my daughter, sir, she's 14, and some other young people, sir, and the things that they're thinking about that may seem absurd, sir, are things that will transform the world. And sometimes, you know, we got to get out of our own way and give people opportunities, sir, and give them opportunities to fail. In this renewable energy space, sir, there are going to be technologies that have been tried and tested, and people are going to bring those, but there are going to be some, sir, that have not yet been tried and have not yet been tested. And those will belong to the people from your constituency and from mine. And I always feel, sir, that we have to give people a support system so that if they fail in the process of trying, sir, we give them enough support to try again, so that people don't feel like failures, sir. That is what is going to transform the country. So as I close, sir, I wish to thank the Honourable Member for Christchurch East, sir, on bringing this amazing piece of legislation, sir. I look forward to what he is going to do in the energy space, sir. And as much as I look forward and I appreciated what he did on the South Coast, Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to give my good friend, the Honourable Member from Christchurch West, the assurance that I would appreciate and I would continue, sir, to support him, sir, when St. Michael's South is brighter now and tomorrow than it was yesterday, and that we can have this conversation perhaps under a bright street pole in the Bayland when he brightens the street poles in the Bayland. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honourable Member for St. Michael West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is historically very much a part of Bajan culture that neighbors find themselves in conflict one with another. It comes sometimes to quarrel, and unfortunately sometimes to blows. As it is in the natural realm in our neighborhoods, so it is sometimes in the political sphere. And political neighbors will face off against each other from time to time. Christchurch West, St. Michael's South, political neighbors. So in the context of our culture, both natural and political, that is to be expected occasionally. But I know that the Honourable Member for Christchurch West is a pacifist, and he's not normally given to conflict. And if he exhibits any seeming disposition from time to time to enter into conflict, it's because he feels seriously provoked or is highly frustrated. Now, I don't think, Mr. Speaker, that the Honourable Member for St. Michael's South did anything today to suggest any serious level of provocation or to gender any level of high frustration. So it must be that there are other stimuli at work in the experience of the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, and I hope in his interest and that of the Chamber and that of his neighbour in St. Michael's South, that he is able soon to relieve himself of some of the frustrations and to resist the dynamics that induce or conduce to provocation. Now, Mr. Speaker, this debate for me, and I shan't be long, this debate for me is as much about anything else as it is about the matter of democratization of the energy sector in Barbados. And as the member for Christchurch East said, democratization of the investment culture in Barbados. I think these two things are extremely important. And if this piece of legislation furthers that process of constructing the platform for a revolution in our energy sector, such that the energy sector, energy component of the economy is further democratized, and the investment culture in Barbados, which is poorly off today, is better served, then I think that the legislation achieves significantly good ends. So it's as much about that as it is about anything else. We could talk about licenses, we can talk about all kinds of things, but it is about that, principally. I've called for, and in this very session of Parliament, the dismantling of the light and power monopoly in Barbados. Everybody in Barbados knows that the administration in office today significantly led the way in the dismantling of the monopoly with respect to telecommunications in Barbados. That is clearly documented. That is the world and reality which we now live, continues to be improved. And therefore the administration is to be credited with that. They find themselves faced with such a situation as we are in 2019, and with the world postured as it is with respect to energy, the energy sector globally, and certainly in our region, that they must feel a sense of obligation to do what they can to bring an end to the existing monopoly of the Barbados Light and Power. Now, the Honourable gentleman who brought this piece of legislation before us today, the member for Christchurch East, is one among those gentlemen over there who is easily recognized for his apparent sense of decency and his integrity and his gentlemanly qualities, easily recognized for those apparent virtues in himself. And hence, it is in that spirit that I took his comments with reference to the extent to which he was able to speak vis-a-vis the negotiations ongoing with the Barbados Light and Power monopoly. I can understand the need to be constrained in that which one says when negotiations are ongoing over critical matters, or when they are at a very crucial stage, as we're left to believe that they are. But at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, I would rather have heard a little more from the Honourable Member, the Minister of Energy, with respect to this matter. When we negotiate in the name of the people of Barbados. And when we're dealing with a monopoly with a long history and in a critical sector such as the energy sector, Barbadians need to be told, as much as it is proper so to do with respect to both the state and the stage of those negotiations. And I do not think the honourable gentleman, such as he is, went far enough, and I still would want to believe that the people of Barbados would like to know in a little fuller detail, without crossing the lines of appropriateness, of course, as to where we are with those negotiations, what are the difficult points over which we must have further discussion, without necessarily compromising government's position or compromising the negotiations themselves, because you've put information out there in the public and inappropriate. I just say that I believe we could have been told a little bit more, and I would hope that in soon order and in due course we will hear somewhat more as to what is going on with these negotiations. They are absolutely critical at this very important juncture in our economic development, Mr. Speaker. Now, the BLMP is a monopoly in all aspects of electricity supply in Barbados. We all know that, and that was re-emphasized here today. And that has some implications attaching to itself when one considers the context in which we now live and the state of our economy and the posture of government intended policy with respect to energy. That has some implications attaching to it, which will throw up some concerns. And my role, simply on behalf of the people and those of us who sit on this side, is to raise some of those concerns and to offer a couple of points for consideration and reflection of the honourable member, the minister and member from Christchurch East. I think by his own admission, BLMP has the capacity to frustrate government's 2030 agenda with respect to a fossil-free environment. You're talking about a monster of a monopoly in our local domestic terms, controlling all of the infrastructure, and historically so, largely driving the policy of energy in Barbados for decades and decades. And as you negotiate with them from a position where you would want, as a government, to bring about almost a revolution in the energy consumption and the energy supply culture in Barbados, you would have to admit that that entity does have the capacity to frustrate your intended 2030 goal of a fossil-free environment in Barbados. The honourable member from St. Michael's South rightly said that private interest entities do not come to the table necessarily for love of country, but they come to the business about being profit, some of them, unfortunately, about profiteering. Therefore, those who hold a monopoly control and interest, who find themselves in a position of strength to serve their own capital ends, capital aims, will not easily be wrestled to the ground. And government, by its own admission, has set an ambitious agenda for 2030. And to get to that agenda, government must get past this monopoly, or must work with this entity in a new iteration or manifestation of itself in a new culture. And therefore, therein lies the potential for government's program to be stymied, to be retarded, to be derailed. That is a concern. We all know the importance of the renewable energies potentially to Barbados. And therefore, I agree with the position of the government that we must get there. Not quite there, but we must get there. But we have to deal with an entity that has the potential to frustrate that program. The agenda of government, laudable as it might be with respect to the renewable energy platforms in Barbados and the policies emanating from those goals, Mr. Speaker, there are implications for BL&P investment as well. This is an entity that is invested largely in developing the structures, the infrastructure that have served our energy needs and served our energy needs well in the past. But there are realities that would have to be faced, because a shift in the culture around the energy sector where this monopoly is dismantled as part of the centerpiece of that effort brings into question the whole notion of the investment of BL&P going forward. One question which arises out of that reflection is one that throws up a reality, Mr. Speaker. Will we, in the medium, short or medium term, necessarily see an increased cost to consumers with respect to the use of electricity supplied and provided by the BL&P as a result, perhaps, of an accelerated depreciation rate program? The BL&P has about 9 years left on its license, and if government is serious about its 2030 agenda with respect to renewable energies, then that has, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying, implications for the BL&P investment. And if dismantling of the monopoly is seriously intended, that has implications for BL&P existing infrastructural development and any further infrastructure development likely to take place over the next 5, 6, 7 years. And hence, the reality of that question with which we are confronted. Is there a likelihood, and it is implied that there will be, an accelerated program for depreciation of rates with respect to their existing investment? And what does that, therefore, throw up for consumers of energy in Barbados at this time? Mr. Speaker, also, there will inevitably be tensions arising from those considerations which relate to the conventional energy supply structures and the renewable energy platforms that will have to be called into being. We saw this with reference to the dismantling of the telecommunications monopoly. In fact, I shouldn't say we saw it. We saw it, yes, and we're still seeing it, that there are some tensions around those considerations which relate to the existing infrastructural architecture of the now existing creature and those structures and platforms which will be created and called into being to facilitate the new creature that we are trying to call into existence. And therefore, those things can't be wished away. They have to be managed away. And they have to be prudently managed away. And if both the entity's interests are to be served, and the interests of the consuming public, and the interests of the emerging class of new entrepreneurs in the new sector, the new profile energy sector, then those tensions have to be properly managed and simply cannot be wished away. It may be not politically prudent for me to simply say I have full confidence in the Minister of Energy responsible for these utility matters to so manage them that we get to that end and that we achieve that goal. And I say that honestly. And if he doesn't, I will come and say it equally honestly. And that's where we are. We are struggling in a context with existing monopoly, a not fully adequate regulatory environment for the new and emerging IPPs, and we're dealing with license issues in a context of negotiations which has been protracted. The context has been protracted. And therefore, that is really, Mr. Speaker, a vortex. That is a set of issues that you have to properly navigate if government is to get where it intends for the sector, if government is to get us past the monopoly culture, and if government is to achieve its 2030 aims. Now, energy policy, Mr. Speaker, if it is going to be meaningful, can't simply be regulatory. It has, in fact, to be revolutionary. Cannot simply be regulatory. It has to be revolutionary. And if government does not have that mindset, where the goal it pursues is not less than revolutionary, then government needs to be possessed of a new mindset or repossessed of a different mindset. It has to be revolutionary, not simply regulatory. We are in a position where 90% of our energy consumption needs is being met from imported sources, 90% plus. You have to change that. It will require nothing less than that which is revolutionary to change that. And that is the point. We have to change that. That is too high a dependency ratio on imported fuel sources. That is costing the country a lot of money, particularly so it's costing the country a lot of foreign dollars. And those foreign dollars are scarce today, and they have been scarce for a while. And we're importing over 90% we're using, and we are not producers of the fuel that drives our economy and sustains our well-being. So we must be revolutionary because we're talking about foreign exchange savings. And those foreign exchange savings must be maximized. This government must understand by now, I am sure, that you must maximize your savings with respect to foreign exchange, and that you must try to reduce the over-reliance on borrowings. Yeah, but the Honourable Member for Microsoft knows that. I'm just talking in general terms. The government understands this, I'm sure well. You got to maximize your savings, and all we're discussing here speaks to an effort to maximize savings on a high import energy bill. It's a serious thing. But we must also reduce our reliance on borrowings, and we must increase our capacity to earn. And therefore, there's a convergence of these three important variables. Saving what we're now spending on imported fuels, fossil fuels. Facilitating the emergence of a new class such that we earn. And at the same time, we reduce our reliance on borrowings. Right now, those borrowings come from the established institutions to which we subscribe, because we can't borrow anywhere else at this time. So these are important variables to which we must give serious considerations. We have to seek after, if we are going to be revolutionary, increased levels of indigenous ownership in the sector. I think that was passingly referenced by one of the earlier speakers, but that is so absolutely important. And the Honourable Member for St. Michael South also made a point akin to that. In fact, he made it much more forcibly, and I would like to re-echo it because I had it here in my notes. And as we pursue this shift in culture, as we pursue these revolutionary ends, we cannot simply exchange. Let me be careful not to use the word devil, because it's becoming commonly used. We got to be careful, Mr. Speaker, that we don't exchange one undesirable variable for another. And so you don't want to dismantle a monopoly only to facilitate the entrance into the market of dominant forces from outside of Barbados, whose investment we think we crave, and therefore we allow for others to enter into the market. The entity which exists as a monopoly is dismantled, but other investors from far afield, some from the same geographical sources, come into the mix and into the new sector and dominate the investment in that sector and walk away reaping all the sweets to be gained or earned in that sector. So we have to see if we're going to be revolutionary in our approach. The emergence of a new business class, a set of new players, and we've got to try to facilitate the increased level of indigenous ownership that is at play in the mix. We've got to reduce costs to consumers. I think Barbados is among the highest center for energy costs, energy use costs in the region. And we love to say that our water rates are the lowest, but we at the same time have to acknowledge our energy costs among the highest. We've got to reduce the costs to consumers. It makes no sense facilitating a new class of players, a new sector, dismantling the existing giant, and then not have the benefit of reduced costs to consumers for various reasons, because that in itself will help to spur the economy in different ways. And then, of course, Mr. Speaker, if we're going to be revolutionary, the initiatives that we implement must also take on board the consideration of natural disaster impact resilience. And the Honourable Member for Christchurch East spoke somewhat to that. I think others did as well. And we are right smack in a geographical area where we are exposed annually to threats of natural disaster impact. And we have been blessed in the sparing mercies of God to the extent that we have not suffered more in this regard as a small, flat country. And may that continue, especially now we face these economic uncertainties, and especially now we're so financially constrained. But the reality is, this is where we are located. And we have to make sure that the infrastructural architecture around us is such that we can mitigate impact, and that in the face of the impact and the post-impact experience, there's a high degree of resilience so that life in Barbados could return to normal as quickly as possible, and that the development gains that we have achieved over time are not so reverse that we're taken back decades in time to redo what we had in fact done in the first place. So if we're going to be revolutionary, we must be robust in that intention and not simply settle for improved regulatory framework where the rubber meets the road, where the boots touch the ground. Mr. Speaker, there must be the revolutionary benefit realized in the economy and the impact of that must change for the good, the lot, the reality, the experience of consumers. But there's some major disincentives, challenges, issues. And there have been studies done which speak to these, and I really am not going to take the time to read all of these things, Mr. Speaker, but this was this is a project document, Mr. Speaker, sustainable energy in the Caribbean, reducing the carbon footprint in the Caribbean through promotion of energy efficiency, use of renewable energy technologies. This is a study that was done, and it lists, through research, Mr. Speaker, the major impediments, the major barriers to achieving the goals of changing the culture around energy consumption, energy supply in the Caribbean region. And they listed no less than 31 variables and dynamics, factors, which constitute barriers to that good, to good progress in this regard. One of them relates to regulatory policies and the framework in which the frameworks that we established to facilitate private investors and independent power suppliers and stuff like that. That's high among the lists. In fact, the lack of regulatory framework and legislation for private investors is rated as the biggest barrier. And second is the gap between policy targets and implementation. And in the sense that I've been talking about for the past few minutes, it is good to have a goal, and it is good to have a policy, and it is good to bring the legislative platform for that policy. But then we've got to get to the business of implementation. And in our particular context, and with respect to this particular matter, there are some hurdles that constitute the reality that we have to get past, not least of which the current negotiations and beyond that. The high initial cost of investment and, well, utility monopoly, et cetera, et cetera. I don't read all of that. 30-something of them, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We have to get past these things, and these can constitute serious impediments to the efforts of the Honourable Member for Christchurch East. Question we have to ask is how interested really, in light of the fact that the status quo, the monopoly tendency, the entities which exist in that type of a context, the extent to which this constitutes one of the major barriers, to what extent is BL&P committed to the renewable energy agenda of the current government? I am not saying anything bad about BL&P. I am asking a question, and the government must have a sense of that. How committed is BL&P to accommodating government such that government is able to effectively achieve its 2030 goals? And there's the issue of the competitive use of scarce land space. This has been a traditional issue in Barbados, where land space realizes, the use of land space realizes serious competition between agriculture and other development. And there's some renewable energy infrastructure and platforms that really require significant amounts of land area and land mass available to them. So that's an issue that will have to be addressed and faced. That is a planning issue, I imagine. And recently, we have embarked upon new approaches to planning policy in Barbados. But there's always been a tension between land for use for agriculture, land for use for development. And the stories are myriad of people upset over certain parcels of land originally designated for agriculture use being turned into development because somebody knows somebody as a friend. That day, with prayers behind us. But the reality is, if you're going to develop the infrastructure to facilitate some of the renewable energy architecture and platform, the notion of competitive use or competition for land use becomes a reality that has to be addressed. Some people will concern themselves more so about the aesthetics of that type of a situation. Mr. Speaker, I heard the Honourable members in Microsoft earlier refer to a lot of those trees out there. Mayamossi, that's where it is. Mayamossi, that's where it is. That's where it is. Some people find them absolutely beautiful. I find that they are unsightly. If they're planted and caused to grow in design patterns, perhaps they're more pleasing to the eye. A lot of them just grow, they're growing all over the place. So you know what they have replaced, Mr. Speaker, largely? Sugar cane. There's no greater, shouldn't say there's no greater, one of the best sights as you fly into Barbados of a past now distant to us is to see the level playing fields spreading across the country, or even when the cane is cut and reaped, the level tracts of land. But you come now and you even drive the highways, Mr. Speaker, it's bush all over the place. Bush all over the place. Before we know it, we're going to be wrestling some strange creatures in those bush. And then all I'm trying to say is there's some people who, when they come to this point in this debate to talk about the infrastructure for some of the renewables, will focus on the aesthetics of the issue, not necessarily the availability of the land, but how the land looks because of all that is laid out on it. That would have to be addressed as well. The Minister of State, the Ministry of Finance is not here. We spoke earlier in this debate. And another very burning issue around this matter is the issue of taxation policy. Many an investment has been derailed when confronted with the taxation realities. If there's supposed to be a new class of entrepreneurs, new emergence in this sector, if we are to revolutionize it, then government has to find the capacity to facilitate such businesses, especially if we are going to create an indigenous economy around this sector as well. And one of the barriers is taxation policy. And one wonders about the current administration's ability to engage in meaningful levels of subsidy, especially in the era of a man called Burke. And we are constrained by the dictates of a man called Burke. And therefore, we are unfortunately unable to do some of the things that we would love to do. Now, Bert is a reality. He's a reality. He's a reality. And therefore, we have to treat the reality. Now, how do you facilitate the new emerging sector around the renewables, especially if you are going to try to encourage a meaningful indigenous level of ownership? How do you get there without making reference to prudent taxation policy and at least considering some level of subsidy? Now, those things are on the table. And all I'm saying is, in the current environment, these are the challenges facing both the government and the Honourable Member for Christchurch East. Startup funding is usually a problem. Especially black businesses in Barbados have had to face that reality. Very small businesses face that reality. Some not so small, medium-sized businesses. Startup funding, and this sector is largely a new sector for us. There's much of it that is untried and unproven here at home. And therefore, those who control the capital purses, the institutions of lending in Barbados, may not be as forthcoming with their generosity as we would perhaps wish them to be. And therefore, these are challenges which will have to be faced and will have to be met as we seek to facilitate the rise of this sector, the emergence of new players, the growth of an indigenous class, while at the same time constraining the dominance of external foreign investment in this new sector of the economy. Now, I have to ask a question here. It's based on 34A of the, it's based on section 9 of the bill amending, and it refers to section 35, but my reading of the original 2013 bill suggests it should be section 34. I might be wrong, but the amendment before us, Mr. Speaker, at section 9 on page 9, amendment of section 35 of the Act, it says, of the 2013 Act. But my reading of this suggests perhaps it should be section 34. And that says that notwithstanding section 3, and section 3 in this amendment and in the original bill speaks to the matter of licenses to be granted and for what. In the amended context, the amended bill speaks to expanding the menu of licenses to capture about 4, 5, 6 different areas, selling, storing, that type of stuff, not simply matters of supply. But notwithstanding section 3, a person other than the public utility who obtained a license before the commencement of the Electric Light and Power Act Amendment 2019 shall not be held to be in breach of that section, that is section 3, and shall be treated for the purpose of this act as if he had obtained a required license under that section. Now that is suggesting to me that there are players already with licenses whose lot, whose reality will not be impacted negatively by the coming of this amended legislation. I would like to know who those players are, if that is something that the public ought to know. And I heard the Honourable Minister, I think it was, referred to potential investors who are looking to get in. It would be good if we could hear, too, if it is prudent and appropriate, who one or two of those potential investors might be. Now, you're changing 34, and you included in 34 a section 3A, which didn't exist before. You had a section 3. Now, you're expanding in section 3 the activities beyond supply, and you're including other areas, like I said, storage, etc. Section 34 now includes a 3A, which suggests the closing. Section 34, 3A, the new section, now suggests a closing of the gate, while perhaps protecting some who are already inside of the gate. I hope I'm not confusing you, Mr. Speaker, with
Not
that.
at all, Honourable.
But it seems to me that if you say those who now currently operate are not to be impacted by this new change because you held the license before this, you are, in some sense, closing the gate on others while facilitating the continuing of privilege for those who are now inside the gate. The other thing about this bill, and it's the original bill, is also incorporated in here, aspects of it, is the power of the minister. I continue to speak about that, and it's not because I'm laying a charge against any particular minister, but there's always the potential for misuse or abuse of power, overuse of power, lack of discretion. And you continue to have situations, Mr. Speaker, where an enormous and awesome lot of power is left in the hands of ministers, almost sometimes unbridled with respect to important matters such as this. I just voice that concern again because it is repeated in the Light and Power 2013, and it comes back in this bill. So, Mr. Speaker, like I said, I wouldn't be detaining you for very long. Those considerations are offered humbly for the reflection of the Honourable Member for Christchurch East, and to the extent that he's in a position so now to do, I would look forward to some of his replies, answers to the questions which I believe the public would want to raise. Thank you, sir.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to wrap up the debate on the Electric, Light and Power Amendment Act 2019. And I wish to address at this point in time some of the concerns, queries, issues raised during the course of the debate by a number of members, and including the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. So I'll go through them in the order that I have them. I understand that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition wished and requested a bit more clarity and information on the Barbados Light and Power negotiations for their license. So that would be the most inappropriate thing for me to do. Actually, I stepped on the crease and walked carefully on the line to be able to give as much information as I actually did give today.
Honourable Member, you know, in cricket terms, who the line belongs to.
The line belongs to the umpire, sir.
The umpire.
Correct, sir.
Just remember that. The
But
line
sir,
belongs to the umpire.
But sir, you know, bowlers sometimes step on the crease to gain an advantage, or step on the crease to show what is left back, how much more they have to go. What I will tell the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, and it addresses some of the other concerns that he had, is that the negotiations are being conducted in the interest of the public of Barbados. If it were not so, we would not be looking to even try to change the monopoly regime that we currently have. Our development and our advancement of the renewable energy sector in Barbados is not just to save foreign exchange, it is to try to drive the cost of electricity for the consumer down. So even the whole regime with the renting of house roofs by businesses, or when independent power producers come in and they're looking for space to carry out their renewable energy projects, these are designed to allow Barbadians to take something that we don't actually see as property. The last thing we put on our house is a roof. And we put the roof on the house, and as far as we're concerned, the house is now done. We can live in it. We don't look back at the roof unless the roof starts to leak. But we now have a situation where you can look back at your roof, you can look at your roof and think, who can I get to put a panel on that is going to pay my whole electricity bill and also perhaps give me something else in my pocket? Who can I rent my roof to? The roof becomes a commodity. So it is a way of encouraging innovative entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship by its very nature should be innovative, but this is defining innovative entrepreneurship. Mr. Speaker, one of the reasons why the generation of electricity, the sector for the generation of electricity is being liberalized, is to actually provide some competition in that space. That is why when I spoke about the regulatory framework and the oversight body, it was because it is necessary to have this transparent structure, and it is necessary to have oversight as to the sale and purchase and the management of the grid itself. to allow other persons than the existing utility to compete in that space. From the time you have people competing in the same space, market forces will determine. If you have a monopoly, you can set any price that you want for anything you want. You can set the price that you want for the purchase of electricity from those who are supplying to the grid. You can set the price effective that you want for the sale of electricity to the end user, to the consumer. So I wish to allay the fears of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition that there's any subterfuge in this. I know he did not use the word subterfuge, but other people listening on may think or hear the word subterfuge. I wish to assure him that the focus of what we are doing is to use our natural renewable resources to generate electricity, and in so doing, at the end of the day, save Barbados foreign exchange and drive the cost of electricity to the end user down. So I hope I have addressed his issue in that respect. The other thing the Leader of the Opposition would have indicated was that the changes that we're doing cannot simply be regulatory. They must be revolutionary. Well, I wish to assure him there'll be nothing short of epic. Our entire landscape is going to change. We're not simply passing legislative amendments to improve regulation. This is to change the entire landscape of Barbados. As I like to do, so everyone wants to say I'm a fantasizer, because some, like my friend next to me here from Christchurch, West Central, are laughing. But I like to think of what is. I am that dreamer. I like to look at what is and see what can be. I like to look at our landscape now with the noisy trucks on the road and the PSVs that are belching black smoke, and think to myself, in 10 years, I won't have to deal with this. The noise I hear outside my house on a night, I won't have to deal with. Traffic now becomes quiet. I don't have to deal with pollutants in the air as I walk along the street because energy is now clean. We don't have to look at the light and power plant or the Arawak plant or any other plants generating electricity belching smoke into the air. We can instead look at graceful wind turbines. We can look at the proper utilization of every part of your house. You live inside and you earn money from the roof. So I wish once again to assure the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, there is nothing pro forma about what it is that we're trying to do now. I used the word, when I opened the word revolution, because that's what it is. It is actually an energy revolution. He did as well say that he's concerned there may be a gap between policy and implementation targets. I wish once again to reassure him. We are moving so expeditiously that we have started to do things in the implementation plan before the implementation plan has actually been properly announced. There's a conference in Barbados, a renewable energy conference in Barbados. I believe it's going to be the 29th of this month, where we're inviting all the players in the market. We're having discussions, lecture topics. We're going to have an open session. So at that conference, we are going to launch the Barbados Energy Policy 2019-2030. We're going to launch the Barbados Implementation Policy. The Barbados Energy Policy, and we're also going to launch the implementation plan with a detailed roadmap of how we plan to get where we want to be and what actually constitutes the new energy mix for Barbados going forward. As I said, sir, we haven't even launched it properly, but we already started putting the renewable energy on the community centers. We're putting solar panels, we put solar panels on a number of government buildings. We're doing energy efficiency audits on as many government buildings as we can, because it doesn't just make sense to use renewable energy. We must actually try to use less energy. So although it's renewable, doesn't mean that we need to use and be inefficient with it. the more we conserve is the more available for somebody else. So even while we were developing the policy, we knew certain things that had to be done, and we started doing those even before the policy was completed and the implementation plan completed. We had started to do a number of the immediate attention items that had to follow from it. So the leader, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, can rest assured there is going to be no implementation deficit in here. There's going to be no lag between policy and implementation. We have hit the ground running and we have a target. This is a sprint. We cannot put it off into the future. There's too much at stake. Our target is 2030. That short time frame does not allow for any lag between policy and implementation. I will actually issue a personal invitation to the Honourable Leader of Opposition to attend the conference. I don't know if he was invited, but I will assure him that he will be, because I would like him to come and see what his government is doing for him and what his Minister of Energy and Water Resources is doing for him. But that points to something else. We need to change the way we think entirely in Barbados. So it can't just be about renewable energy, it has to be about energy conservation. It can't just be about trying to produce more water, it has to be about saving water. I did something recently, sir. I changed all of the showers at my house to water. Sorry, I made it sound like I had a lot of showers. I retrofitted some plumbing, sir, to make my house a lot more efficient. And it took me a while. It took me a while, Mr. Speaker. I beg you, please save me from the interruptions.
Do not be sidetracked by the asides, Honourable.
But you see, sir, as I said, I'm a dreamer. And as he talks about the floors of my house, I'm thinking about my house needs some more floors. I wish I could actually put on some more floors. I have more bathrooms. But I digress. Sir, it takes a while to get accustomed to changes. So my shower does not push out water in the way that it did before. But I get a full shower and I use a lot less water. I measured it, sir. I took a big basin and I turned on with the old shower head and let all of the water go into the basin. And it took 3 minutes for that basin to be filled from empty to completely full. 3 minutes. With the new shower head, it actually takes about 7 minutes. So it shows how much less water you're using. So we don't think about this. In another debate, sir, I had made the point that a number of commercial entities and hotels in Barbados had indicated they were not changing to retrofit their hotels with water-saving devices because there was no need. Water was so cheap, it didn't make sense. It was cheaper to use the inefficient water devices, the inefficient fixtures, than it was to actually replace with water-efficient fixtures. The cost of LEDs are coming down. There's a fantastic project, sir. Barbados is looking to replace all 27,000 street lights across Barbados with LED street lights. It's a good start. But we have to go further. We have to move to the point. My friend from St. Michael's South, sir, took the brave and innovative step of banning single-use plastics in Barbados. We have to get to the point where we're serious, where we ban the importation of non-efficient fixtures and fittings, both for plumbing and both for electricity. There is no good reason that we're still using incandescent bulbs in any aspect in Barbados. There's no good reason. And we soon have to quickly get to the point where we either ban them or make this duty structure so unfavorable to use them that people automatically migrate from their usage. Sir, the Honourable Member for St. Peter had said in his very pointed address about renewable energy that there's no good reason that the next cutting-edge technology innovation can't come from Barbados. that we need to look at incentivizing the schools, the universities, the polytechnic, to try to create classes and create curriculum that are geared towards addressing where we want to get to in the energy efficient sphere and in the sphere of renewable energy. And it may interest this chamber and Barbados to know that one of the leading lights in battery storage, one of the innovators in battery storage, is a Barbadian. I haven't asked for permission to call his name, but I'm going to do so in a favorable light. Is a young gentleman, he cannot be 35. His name is Carlton Cummins, and he's pioneering battery storage, but it's component battery storage. How it exists now, sir, if you have battery components and the battery cell malfunctions or dies, you have to take out the entire battery cell and discard that and replace it with another battery. But he is pushing for fixable batteries, so his batteries are made up of replaceable components. So if the battery cell malfunctions, you can take out the small component part and replace it, and he guarantees the battery for the life. I think it's almost like 15 or 20 years. And this is a Barbadian. He was featured on BBC as an entrepreneur, and he's somebody that we are looking in the ministry to do business with and to bring along, because it is a joke in our ministry that about 10 years ago, he applied to the ministry for a job, and he did not even get a call back. And he said it was the best thing that ever happened to him in his life, because he went overseas and put his idea into action and is now one of the cutting-edge persons in battery storage in the entire world. Someone the government is now looking to do business with. What is it, the biblical reference? The stone that the builder refused has become the head cornerstone. But it just shows that we have the capacity here at home to provide a most excellent product. What we need to do is put the infrastructure and put the resources in place that Barbadians can properly address their mind to fulfilling their potential and doing something special for Barbados. Because whatever you do and any innovations that you develop are things that we can use here. And not just use here, but we can use here. And if successful, we can market it to the rest of the world. Because the whole world will eventually go where Barbados is trying to get to by 2030. So this is now a pivotal point for Barbados. So a lot of what I sat here nodding as the Honourable Leader of the Opposition was making his comments, because a lot of the questions that he posed and a lot of the things that he surmised are things that we have thought of and we are working on and we're encouraging and we're trying to develop. So, sir, although he sits on that side, it is proving more and more to me that he's almost of a similar mind to most of us on this side. At least in this respect, he was almost in concord with what it was that I had, what it was I was proposing. Sir, the other question, the other issue raised by the Honourable Leader of the Opposition was the question as to how committed is Barbados Light and Power to the energy policy of the government, and whether or not they're fully bought in. Barbados Light and Power currently has the largest solar installation in Barbados. I believe it's 10 megawatts. It's 10 megawatts of installed renewable energy capacity. It is a massive farm, and they've integrated that solar farm with sheep rearing. So you have a situation where the farm is on a field, grass grows, somebody tends their sheep, there are a couple of hundred sheep out there, and the sheep are used to keep the grass low on the farm. So it is interactive, harmonious, symbiotic farming. It is solar and sheep farming on the same acreage. So the Barbados Light and Power as well is committed because it makes sense for them. It is not economical for them to be purchasing oil to generate electricity. If the focus of their business then turns to the transmission and distribution, then they will have to get on board with all the other producers who are trying to provide cheap, efficient electricity to be used on the same grid. So even by separating the licenses and allowing competition in the generation sphere, Light and Power has to change their mindset, has to change their mode of operation in order to compete in that sphere of generation. So we have had multiple discussions with Light and Power. Light and Power is assisting the government in its build-out of the charging ports for the transport board. They've pretty much bought into what it is we're doing. They're assisting in the retrofit of the energy-efficient street lights. So Light and Power is fully on board and acknowledges that the government is serious about the shift to 100% renewable by 2030, and they're doing their part. But we are here because they need certainty as to what part they're going to play, not because they've not bought into the vision of the government. So I just wish to put that out there for the record. I am comfortable and satisfied that Light and Power has bought into the 2030 vision, and the bulk of their generation aspect is going to shift towards clean energy and renewable energy. In the spirit of openness, there's a clean energy bridge, because until such time as we get to the full renewable energy capacity, Light and Power still needs, at this point in time, to change out some of their plant and equipment. Some of their plant and equipment is well past its shelf life and it's causing problems. So they're going to be installing a clean energy bridge, cleaner fossil fuels, eventually looking possibly at biogas generation. But it is intended that the plant, once built, is going to be retired from productive use by 2030. But we're not going to disassemble or decommission the plant, because if we have an incident, if you have a natural disaster where the solar panels are destroyed and the wind turbines are damaged, then you still need to have that backup capacity. So we're not being stupid about it. I don't know if that's parliamentary or not, but we're not being stupid about it. Light and Power still has to put a bridge in to guarantee us a steady source of electricity until 2030, or until the renewable energy sphere is such that it can accommodate all of our current energy usage needs. When we have reached that point, we will pull the plant out of active use, maintain the plant, and the plant can step in if needs be. Because you want to get to 100% renewable, you may get to 100% renewable, but you have to have the backup plan. But it says speak softly and carry a big stick. That's what you have to have the backup plan. The Honourable Leader Opposition, I think it is important, so I'm going through the queries that he raised, because I think it is important to address those. He speaks as the voice of other people who have not bought into what it is that we're doing. And it is necessary to address his concerns, and in so doing, hopefully we will capture the concerns of everybody who might be listening. There was also a concern raised about the use of scarce land in Barbados with the renewable energy projects. And that is a concern for us, because solar is perhaps the technology that makes the most sense for us, because we're blessed with year-round sunshine. But the reality is that solar, more than any other form of renewable energy, uses up land space. Because to get the 10 megawatts in St. Lucie, I think it was 4 or 5 acres, plenty acres of land to get the capacity. Whereas you could get that same capacity, for example, from 1 or 2 wind turbines using a lot less land space. But we have to look holistically at this, because along with the renewable energy development, we're looking at land use policy changes and changes to the water zones. So even where you have a new zone A that might be restricted from development, there may be certain limited development available. If you put a wind turbine on zone A, it is not polluting the ground, but you're making use of land that otherwise would not have been used. So the government is also looking at its land use policy, how it can maximize the use of the land while accommodating the zones, the water zones, and the reasons for the restricted development in the first place. So we're not operating in silos. So it's not that the Ministry of Energy is doing its own thing, and water is doing its own thing, and town country planning is doing its own thing. We are all working together to realize this vision, because it affects all of us. And the last thing I believe here was the Honourable Leader Opposition asked as to who are the people who are being grandfathered, who are those being protected or exempted from the amendments that we're seeking to do now. I don't want to call all the names. What I can assure the Leader of the Opposition that our records are open. Every license that I have granted, I have signed for. Those records are available at the ministry. All you need to do is come and ask. I don't wish to put people's business out there on the road, but there are no hidden licenses. So if the Honourable Leader of the Opposition wishes me to write him and provide him the information, I will do it. If anybody off the street wants to inspect the files and wants to know who has what licenses, then I'll provide that information as well. So there's no mystery there, but I just don't want to call the names of people from the floor of Parliament. But in the majority of instances, the people who are being grandfathered are a number of those people who benefited just recently from the 41 cents with the flood of applications. So there are a lot of small and medium players in the local market. There are some individuals who may have farms or who may have big properties that wish to cash in on it. There might be some existing businesses that wish to diversify their portfolio, but the bulk of the people who will be grandfathered and exempted from what we're doing here are actually small and medium enterprises in Barbados and local players in the market. So it's not foreign players we're protecting. The largest foreign player in the market is the utility itself, right? So, but I wish to assure the public of Barbados that anything you want to know about the licenses, you just need to come to the ministry and ask, and we can provide the information to you. I just don't want, for the purposes of this debate, to put people's business out on the road. So I trust, sir, that I have addressed all of the concerns that were raised by the Honourable Leader of the Opposition and those other members who spoke. And as my final statement in my wrap-up, it is a change in time. We are now living in our own future. Barbados has changed. The world is changing. We are perfectly poised to be on the cutting edge and the forefront of that change, to be the example in the Caribbean and for smaller states. We have taken the lead with the ban on single-use plastics. We have the lead with our Minister of the Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy, that we're actually pushing the redevelopment of our blue sector and the exploitation of our offshore in all aspects. In this as well, we are committed. We want by 2030 to stand up and hold our hands up and say we are now the first 100% green small island developing state in the world. And these amendments are the start of that process to allow us to inject certainty back into our market and to provide certainty to the largest current player in the market by being in a position to grant them their license once the negotiations have been complete. It is exciting times for us, sir. This is a good time to be a Barbadian. This is a good time to be in energy in Barbados. And the investments are there knocking at the door. And the Honourable Leader of the Opposition will realize soon enough who is trying to get into Barbados. Because when they come, they'll be coming with money. So, sir, with those final comments, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Question is that this honourable bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Sir, I beg to move that you do know. Sir.
Honourable member, Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the absence of the chairman of committees, Section 5, subsection 5 of the standing orders provide that the House may elect any member present to act as chairman of committees. I therefore beg to move that the honourable member of Forson Michael West Central be elected to act as chairman of committees for the remainder of today's sitting.
Question is that the honourable member for St. Michael West Central be elected chairman of the committees. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. The honourable member is so elected.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself in the committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
House is in committee.
Clause 1.
I beg to move that clause 1 start part.
The question is that clause 1 stand part. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Mr. Chairman of Committees, I just beg to move one slight amendment that the word generating be changed to generation so that the relevant clause reads, dispatch in relation to electricity means the conduct of activities involved in the central management and direction of generation systems and other sources of electricity, etc.
The question is that clause 2, as amended, stand part. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 3.
I beg to move that clause 3 stand part.
Beg to second that.
The question is that clause 3 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 4.
I beg to move that clause 4 stand part.
Beg to second that.
The question is that clause 4 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 5.
I beg to move that clause 5 stand part.
Beg to second that.
The question is that clause 5 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 6.
I beg to move that clause 6 stand part.
Beg to second that.
The question is that clause 6 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
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 Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 7.
I beg to move that clause 7 stand part.
Beg to second that.
The question is that clause 7 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 8.
Beg to move that clause 8 stand part.
Beg to second that.
The question is that clause 8 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 9.
I beg to move that clause 9 stand part.
Beg to second that.
The question is that clause 9 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Report.
Mr. Chair, I beg to move that you know report to His Honour, the Speaker, the passing of one bill in committee.
Second that.
The question is that I now report to His
With
Honour.
amendment, sorry. With amendment.
The question is that I do now report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee with amendments. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
The chairman of committee is reporting the passing of one bill with amendments in committee.
Bill be now read a third time.
The question is that this bill be read a third time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those
Aye.
against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now passed and cited as the Electric Light and Power Amendment Act 2019.
Beg to second that.
The question is that this bill be now passed and so cited. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye.
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 Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This bill stands passed and so cited.
The recommittal of government notices.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to give notice of the withdrawal of the earlier resolution and to replace the resolution as follows. The resolution to approve, in accordance with Section 5 of the Crown Lands Vesting and Disposal Act, Cap 225, the lease to the Royal Commonwealth Society, Barbados Branch, of the parcel of land together with the buildings thereon, being the property of the Crown, situated at the Pine in the parish of St. Michael in this island, for use as its headquarters and commercial office.
Recommittal first readings of bills.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
I beg to move that the Medical Cannabis Industry Bill 2019 be read a first time.
Questions the aforementioned may be read a first time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it.
Revert to government.
Mr. Speaker, with that, we have come to the end of today's sitting. Sorry? You just did it. I just moved. I just did it. Yeah. Did it. I did it. Yeah, don't worry, I got you. All right, I beg to move, Mr. Speaker, that the House be suspended,
Suspended or adjourned?
sorry, be adjourned until I'm being distracted by the Honourable Member for St. Andrew, Mr. Speaker, but I want to assure him that the resolution for housing was laid a short while ago. Since when? The 30th. So we could do it the 30th? Yeah. Okay. Apologies, Mr. Speaker. I think we've resolved it. So I beg to move that the House be adjourned until the 30th of August at 10 a.m. in the morning. Friday, 30th.
The question is that this honourable chamber stands adjourned until Friday, the 30th day of August at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands adjourned until the 30th day of August, Friday, the 30th day of August at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.